Okay, welcome to this episode of Smart Leaders Sell. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and today I'm joined by the lovely Naomi Bulger today. Woo-hoo! Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jess.
I'm so excited to have you. So for those of you who obviously haven't been on the podcast yet and who are regular listeners, there's quite a thing, there's quite an achievement to be said for Naomi because she's relatively new to my community, and in fact probably met me, I wanted to say about 6 weeks ago on the Janet Murray podcast, and since then has binge listened every single episode, which I think is really impressive because this podcast has been going since September last year. So actually there are when I look at it and I'm like, oh, there are actually quite a few episodes now. Like we're getting to the point where we have more than like 40, which I thought would be a really big number. So there's that side of it. But also, you know, what I always say to people is when I get on the podcast, sometimes it's people I know and sometimes it's people I don't. And sometimes it's really difficult to develop a rapport with people because obviously coming on a podcast, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Like nobody really wants to ask questions and it's a bit awkward. But you came on and you were literally like, yeah, this is me. And you were so warm and friendly and exciting. And we've been talking for like the last 10 minutes before we actually hit the record button. And I'm genuinely excited about your questions today. So before we get into the juicy question stuff, tell people a bit about you, because the kind of things that you've been telling me right now, I think are incredible. And you really are focusing on helping people, you know, outlet their creativity, inspire them, create, I'm going to say with confidence, because we all know that we love that phrase. Yes. But it's that kind of thing that you're doing. And I think that's huge, especially with the creative background that you have. So tell people what you're spending your days doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm a journalist, a writer, and an illustrator, and I spend my days these days combining writing articles for magazines and illustrating for clients, but also more and more teaching other people how to be creative and how to live their life in a kind of a slower, more mindful way, whatever that means for them. So not necessarily, I don't teach painting or drawing. I teach people how to tap into the side of them that enables them to feel like I'm a creative person, or I can do art and I don't have to be Picasso in order to do it. I can apply these skills across the board and I can feel really good about it. Whether it's sort of coloring in for mindfulness or whether I'm teaching them skills that involve art therapy, there's a whole broad range of things that I do to try and help people just feel more in touch with themselves and their creative sides.
And I love this because we often talk about creativity when we come into the entrepreneurial world. Now, I'm somebody who does not class themselves as creative. And I think that it's probably a legacy from my parents. When I was little, my mum got very, very concerned about me because, you know, kids draw stick people and things like that. And, you know, they go out and they draw their things. And she asked me one day, she was like, Jessica, you draw these people, but they never have hands. Why is that? And obviously I was a kid. I was like, well, I can't draw hands. I don't get it. And she was like, oh, right. And a few days later, I asked her why she was so concerned. She was like, I thought you were like some kind of psychopath who just really hated hands and that we're going to wake up one night with you like by our beds with a knife trying to, you know, cut our wrists off. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So ever since, I've kind of felt like creativity is not really my jam, you know, certainly not drawing anyway. But as I got older, I started to realize that actually there were lots of other elements of being creative, you know, writing. Now we have like video and audio and all these kinds of things. And that actually those can be classed as being creative as well.
Absolutely.
And that was lovely. You know, I was like, okay, I'm completely not talented in the drawing department, but, you know, there are other things I can do relatively well. So I love that you're teaching people how to think outside the box in terms of their own creativity. Yes, you're doing the colouring books for mindfulness and the art therapy, but before we hopped on here, you told me about this amazingly niche letter writing course. And I'm like, yes. Wow, I've never even thought about that. Like, I've never even thought about writing a letter and not knowing what to put on the page. And, you know, that for me is amazing that you are thinking creatively about your own products and services as well. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. And I would say that being an entrepreneur as you are is one of the most creative things you can do. You are phenomenally creative, not in just building a business, but in the way that you can respond to your clients. And even on a call like this, to right away, your brain can come up with solutions and ideas and pathways That's the purest form of creativity to my mind. So let's just put to rest that you're not creative.
I feel like we have to have a new definition.
Yes.
I'm leaving it to you, Naomi. I'm
drawing. I'll come up with something.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
the one with names actually, so we'll brainstorm later.
Good. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. We'll have like a new mission for creative people.
Done.
This is really, really exciting for me, because the one thing that I see, and this kind of ties into the question I know you're going to bring up later, but the one thing that I see is that creative people tend to feel like creativity doesn't count, and I see a lot of people who will come to me and they'll say, oh, I'm an amazing copywriter, or I'm an amazing artist, or portrait photographer, or wedding photographer, or, florist, or whatever it is. And they'll say, but I can't possibly charge because it's just creative. Do you see that a lot with people? Do you see that with a lot of the people who are buying from you? Do they really value the creativity, but they feel like it's just a thing? Or do you get people who are genuinely like, I want to at some point make this my career?
A little bit of both, but there are so many people in the former group where they'll say to me, I long to be more creative. I feel like I'm a creative person. I long to express that in some way, but the priorities, whether it's time or money making or family, it is the bottom of the ladder. So everything else must take precedence. And a lot of my work when I've done one-to-one work with people has been working through giving yourself permission to express yourself creatively. And it doesn't need to impinge upon your work or your family or anything else, but it's our evolutionary advantage as human beings, the ability to imagine ourselves somewhere that we are not, sets us apart, and it's why we evolved. It's really essential to human survival, and giving ourselves permission to exercise that part of our humanity, whatever that means, whether it's designing a garden, baking something beautiful, starting a business. Creativity doesn't have to be painting a masterpiece, but expressing that somehow has, numerous benefits in terms of therapy, economic growth, everything, but we don't prioritize it, myself included. I find it really hard to justify what I do and to charge money for it. Yeah.
So this is really interesting for me, because when I look at creative people and when I look at the kind of description that you've just given me around, look, creativity will help you problem solve in a different way, and it will help you manage your time differently, and it'll help you communicate differently. I think, if you're creative, you will think about different learning styles when you're communicating. You'll think about the reactions that people have. That's and true. It amazes me that then creative people say, but that I can't charge for that because it's just creativity. And I'm like, hang on a minute though. Creativity has got to be one of the most transferable skills. If you can think creatively to, produce a piece of artwork, you can then think creatively in order to, make a big meeting happen. You can change the way that somebody looks at the world. You can set up a crowdfunding campaign, and you can do something that is completely different than what you might have experienced before. And I think that's huge. And yet people don't want to charge for that, or they feel like other people might not prioritize it. And I think that's really interesting. But it does obviously lead us perfectly onto our questions. So hit me with the questions, because you've got a double-barreled approach today, which I'm loving.
I do. I'm just trying to get some bang for my non-existent buck. Yeah, I have a double whammy question. The first is that, so I'm developing this course in response to pain points of my community, saying, how can I want to be more creative, but, and I have a whole lot of buts that we've talked about. I don't have the time. I can't prioritize it. I don't feel confident, all of those things. So I'm developing this course to literally answer all of those pain points and give them that transformation. You are creative. Here's how you can literally train your brain to think in a more creative way than it did before, and you can exercise this in your life. My question, first of all, is my community are used to me doing things like how to write letters and coloring books, very low priced and very much about sort of gentle, slow living approach to creativity into life, which is what I'm about and what I believe in. Listening to your podcasts a lot, I hear you talk about a premium offer, and I guess this course would be quite premium. It's significantly bigger and more involved and a greater transformation than anything I've done before. And I have listened to your talking about sales conversations and discovery calls and how to manage them and how to, you know, pre-select the people for the calls. I'm so far behind in this that I'm not even up to the call. I've never made a call in my life. And I don't even know in my community how I would introduce such a thing without it being completely a shock to them and completely not myself. Why does she want to talk to me? She's always just given me free colouring in templates and taught me how to write a letter. Why does she want to have a call and it seems suddenly really big and corporate and, you know, salesy in the bad way, not the good way?
Yeah.
So first of all, how do I get my community on board and even invite them to talk to me? Mm-hmm. Secondly, is that my question is around pricing, because while I clearly value creativity really highly, no matter how highly people I seem to emotionally value it, it's really hard for them to put a dollar figure, because they're not going to make 10K a month necessarily, possibly down the track, by, you know, doing a creativity course.
Okay. So I think, firstly, as soon as you said they have so many butts, I have to admit that song flashed past in my brain. You know, the I like big butts again. I like. So in my head, as you were saying all of that, I was listening, but also dancing. I was having one of those baby from Scrubs moments where I was like, oh my gosh, that song is.
Now you fit me there right now.
Right? We should definitely jam on this. But me too. I think the great thing about what you've already done is you've already done your market research. And the great thing about your audience is that when you were talking about it and you said you'd been out to your audience, you'd asked the question, what is it that you struggle with? You didn't just get like 1 or 2 responses. You had hundreds of responses, which for somebody who has grown a brand new list, you know, and, you know, is relatively new to starting, that's huge. Because most people would kill for hundreds of responses. So the good news is that your audience actually already wants to communicate with you. And in terms of sales calls, that then bodes really well, because if they're happy to spend the time writing an email, which arguably takes longer, particularly if you find it difficult to write letters, then actually it's a short step to getting on a sales call. And I think the great thing about what you've done is you have made yourself really niche. You know, I see a lot of entrepreneurs who they come out and they talk about creativity. Their problem is there is no specific outcome. So they're talking about something that people can't touch, that they can't identify with, and that becomes really difficult. Whereas what you've done is you've sectioned it into blue ocean areas. You know, I've never met anyone else who's doing a letter writing course. I have had maybe 2 clients that have thought about coloring books and, you know, those kinds of things, but it's small. It's not like business coaches where they're, you know, 10 a penny. And I say that with all due respect to business coaches, obviously, but we really are. So I think, you know, you've done a really great thing there. When you look historically at people who've done similar things, so if we look at Ashley Amberger, she started in copywriting. She was very, very niche. She started actually similar to you in corporate copywriting. And she had this blog. I love it. Everyone should read it. It's called The Middle Finger Project. It is exactly how it sounds. Lots of swearing, but absolutely fantastic. And she basically started out, she was doing these projects. She was writing this blog, and eventually she wrote a book. You know, she wrote this book and she sold it to her following. And that was kind of her first sale. And she was really excited that people were buying this book. And at the time she was living in her car in a Tesco car park or whatever. And so she really needed that. Fast forward a few years, and what she's done now is recently she launched a legal course. She launched a business building course. She launched, you know, lots of different copy courses. She had a branding and writing retreat where people could like write their entire website and have a branding photo shoot done, and it was in London. Yes, I stalk her a lot. I read every email. But it's that kind of thing where she went from being super, super niche and having these super niche courses and broadened out into the wider business stuff. The other person that you could look at for something like this would be Rebecca Tracy, who incidentally also started in copywriting. It seems to be a theme. And again, started niche, started with her writing skills and things like that, and then started to broaden out into helping other people generate ideas for their business. So again, both of these people, super successful, started small, and then they started to scale. And that's kind of the trajectory that your business is taking. It's just quicker than theirs. And that's it. You know, And the good news is you're not moving out of your niche. You're still dealing with creative outlets and things. It's just that the difference is you're holding people accountable to actually doing it and making the time and making it a priority, rather than telling them that they can just kind of pick up as and when. So I think that actually lends itself really well to sales calls. Yes, it's going to be a premium offer, but I think your audience actually want to talk to you. They clearly want to communicate. So it's a case of putting together a few really non-sleazy posts that just tell them why you want to get on the phone with them. And you can start by being as open as, saying, I'm going to do a couple of market research calls. They're going to be 15 minutes long. I want to talk about a new course that I'm putting together. I'd really appreciate some feedback from people who are struggling with time, implementation, fitting it all in, finding their creative outlet, for example. So you can pick those three and just say, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. If you come on and do one of these market research calls and you give me the answers, I'm going to give you 15 minutes free with me to pick my brain on anything that you want. And you'll find that people will be like, oh, okay, cool. That's great. The benefit of doing those market research calls is that you hear from the horse's mouth, like how much would they be willing to pay for a course? What is it that they'd want it to include? Would they want one-to-one time with you, or would they want like group support? You can find out and do that digging on calls much quicker than you can with an email. You could do, and I would max those out at between 5 and 10 so that it's not taking you horrendous amounts of time. And that's it for the market research calls. Then what I do is I place some posts out to your email list and out to your community, and basically talk about the benefits of them getting on a sales call with you. So this is when the product is ready to launch. And you might not have even done a sales page or anything for it yet, but you want to start talking to people and helping them make the right decision around whether or not they want to work with you in this capacity. So at that point, you put out these posts, and you've got to be really specific about what they're going to get from the call, even if they don't buy. So you've taken my sales scripts training, obviously. So you'll know that every call, they should be getting a breakthrough. It's not free coaching. So it's not like the market research stuff where they get to ask you anything and you're just going to give them the answer. It's that these calls, they're going to come away with a specific breakthrough around, do they actually want to be creative? Are they committed to putting the time in, or do they just want to learn little elements? Have they really got a book inside them, or are they somebody who actually just kind of thrives on the idea that one day they might, so it's helping them come to that decision-making process. And so what I do is put out these posts and say, if you are this person, and again, outline what type of person you want to talk to, what they're struggling with, and the outcomes that they're looking for, then I'd like to talk to you for 30 minutes, and we're going to come up with an idea about your creative goals, how we can help you manage time, scheduling, problems with implementation to actually, I'm going to use the word birth, but that sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? But to birth your latest project, or, birth the book that you've always been thinking about, and have that post in there and just say, if you want in, all you've got to do is book into my calendar. So you could, if they're on an email, just pop them a link, hyperlink in the email. And if it's a post to a community, comment yes, or comment book, or whatever below, and I can send you the details of how to book in. That way it's not sleazy. People assume that sales calls are sleazy generally when they feel like they're being expected to provide an outcome that they don't want to give. When we're transparent about it and we're like, look, it's not free coaching, but we are going to, you are going to leave with an understanding of why you're not taking time for creative pursuits. You're going to leave with an understanding of actually how important creative pursuits might be in your everyday life, and how they can help you solve other problems that are not directly related to the writing of a book or, the creating of a planner. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Would I say to them, so when I'm putting out to my community or to the newsletter, inviting these calls, would I actually say to them, am I going to be selling to them on the call? And so I presume I tell them that up front.
You can. I personally don't. It's not because I don't want people to know that I'm selling, but it's because I have a pre-qualification questionnaire that gets them to go through some questions anyway, which weeds out people who are not committed. And it also gives me a bird's eye view of, is this person ready to do something with me, Or do I need to redirect them to a great free resource or somebody else potentially? Lots of different things like that. The second thing is that when I get on the call, I'll set out an agenda that says, look, this is what the call is for. This is what we're doing. We're going to talk about your goals. We're going to talk about what's stopping you. And then if it feels right, and only if it feels right, I'm going to share with you how we can potentially work together in the future to help you achieve that.
Right.
So because I might not sell to everybody, I don't want to put it in an email, hey, I'm going to sell to you, because you might not jive with the person. So there's no point in kind of hedging that I might also sell to you. If actually you get on the phone with them, you're like, oh God, I'd never want to work with this person.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense, because I will be working quite closely with people in this course. So I want the right people for all of the students to feel like they've got the good vibe, the good tribe around them.
Exactly. And so that's the thing. It's really, really important. And then obviously when you're writing these emails, send out 2 or 3. A lot of people make the mistake if they send out 1 and maybe they get like 2 responses and they're like, oh God, nobody wanted to book in the call. The reality is people just didn't see it, or you didn't have enough hyperlinks in the email. Try and put like 3. If you're booking, if you're writing an email about sales calls, put in about 3 hyperlinks to your calendar to book in. Okay. The kind of more strategic way to look at email marketing is that if you have the same hyperlink 3 times in an email, people are more likely to click than if you have 3 different ones. So keep it really consistent and make them keep thinking, oh yeah, just click here. Okay. Like that's the way their brain has to feel about it. Does that make sense?
It does. I feel like I can do that.
Good. Well, that's a good start. So pricing. And the thing that I was thinking about when you're talking about pricing was that you were talking about how you can justify like the cost of something that's creative, right? It's not for you to justify their finances. That's the first thing I say to all my clients. I'm like, what they spend their money on, none of your business. I'm going out today to buy a new car because mine had to be scrapped this week. And most people will go, oh, Jess, you can go and buy any new car. Someone said to me the other week, why don't you just get a Porsche? And I was like, I would love a Porsche. I really would. It's my favorite car, Carrera. But I live in an inner city and we share 1 underground parking space. And so when Sam is home, guess who gets kicked down the street? Well, that's me, right? So there is no point in me going out and buying a Porsche. So instead I'm going to end up with a Suzuki Swift, which isn't quite as glamorous.
So close.
Might have a sunroof or something. Might be really jazzy. It's that kind of thing that you can't judge the difference or the items that they want to spend their money on. Equally, we have to look at your ideal clients. And I think from what you're saying is that your ideal clients should be able to have that link or be educated that actually it's not just about the coloring in, right? Mm-hmm. It's about what that gives you externally from that, time management, relaxation, mindfulness, de-stressing, all those things that then lead into less arguments with your partner or spouse, less being sat there bored and just eating your way into oblivion on a Sunday afternoon. It's those kinds of things, being able to problem solve creatively, being able to go into work and being alert and productive and ready to communicate with difficult colleagues. It's those kinds of things that you want to be talking about as ideal outcomes. Right. Creativity or the art is the tool that you're using. Mm-hmm. The outcome is all the other things that go along with that and the benefits. Does that make sense?
Yes. I like the way you put that. You should be the writer, please.
No, honestly. Like, it's fine. I can speak it, but I can't put it on paper.
No, it makes absolute sense, because I think I have been talking about it in the opposite way, because my community, my people focus on the art. Mm-hmm. I'm telling them, yes, I can give you this and we'll do this big art project and we can do this course and you'll get this. But also, by the way, it has all these other benefits and this is really important in life. Mm-hmm. And I haven't, I've made that sort of adjunct to the art. Whereas the reality is it's all of the above. I like that you say the art is the tool, because that is their focus. They do want that and they find joy in creating, or at least they want to find joy in creating. Most of them are telling me. But it is a tool to a whole different way of living, and it's opens up new pathways in the brain, and off you go. So
and that's the thing. That's what you want to be selling them, mm-hmm. is because their connection to the art, whether they realize it or not, is about the joy they experience when they do it.
Yes.
Right? And what we're not seeing anyone sell is, hey, you're an artist, create joy in your life. We're seeing, hey, learn how to draw hands.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I mean, drawing hands would probably make absolutely zero difference in my life right now. But
Mine too.
Well, this is the thing, right? It's kind of like, well, hands, who needs them? You know, but it's kind of like learning to, I don't know, play another instrument. I would love that. You know, learning another language, great. Those are all skills that actually I'm like, oh, I quite enjoy those. So it's about educating your audience and saying, look, it's not just, yes, you're going to leave, you're going to create this amazing piece of art, but it's more about what the art represents. And actually, there are a whole host of other benefits. And so when you're selling to them and when you're thinking about price, you want to be thinking about benefits rather than features.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not about selling, oh, you're going to get the one-to-one time with me and we're going to do this big art project. It's about, actually, this is going to change your life because these are the things you're going to experience as a result. And you're going to have a physical representation of those feelings and, you know, that journey on your wall, in your hands, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And do you think, I'm sorry, should I stop? I've got so many questions for you.
Keep going, it's fine.
In terms of pricing, one idea that was suggested to me earlier today actually was to go to my audience and essentially give them a couple of choices. So rather than say, how much would you pay, is to say there's at this level or at this level. I feel that I can easily do that, but I'm really reticent. And I'll tell you, because I feel that I could absolutely separate out the coursework, which if they were super self-motivated and really gung-ho, they could do all of that learning and actually come away with the genuine transformation 100%. However, so many of them have talked to me about motivation, accountability, support, confusion.
Yeah.
So the course that I'm developing has all of those elements of community, both other students, one-on-one with me, the art project that sort of ties it all together, and all those sorts of check-ins to keep them supported and motivated along the way.
Yeah.
So potentially I could separate it out, but my concern would be that the people choosing the lower priced option of just it's sort of a traditional online course would sort of kind of peter out halfway through, because it's, you know, it could be potentially hard slog just doing that on your own, not complete it, not be happy with the outcome, and then sort of no one wins, it reflects on me. What's your thinking in that?
And this is going to sound really harsh, but I don't care what my audience thinks of my pricing. It's none of their business. Just like their finances are none of my business, my pricing is none of theirs. For me, the reason that is because I can't create a business based on what somebody else wants me to charge. And I know, for example, let's go back to the car. I'm going to go and buy a car later. Now, the dealer that we use, Sparshats, is not going to turn around and say, Jess, what would you like to pay for this car? And I'm going to go, oh, 50 pence. I'm like, oh, okay, no worries. Just walk on out. Like, here's your key, off you go. Equally, if I turned around and said, okay, this is, you know, you're pricing this as a £7,000 car. I want to pay 4. That's not going to happen. They might negotiate, you know, I might get it for 5.5. Probably will. I'll really work on those negotiation skills today. But ultimately, their business isn't defined by my opinion, because my opinion is generated based on how important this is to me and how much I need it. Now, ironically, I'm walking in with absolutely nothing. My car has had to be towed. Like, it's no longer living. And if I don't have a car, I can't get around anywhere. So actually, it's really important. And it means that I will pay more at this current time than if somebody had said to me last year, hey, Jess, do you want to buy a new car? Not really. I'm not in any pain. So I wouldn't be asking them about the price point. I'd be looking at putting all of the outcomes on paper for you, and you sitting and going, what would make me feel comfortable as the first time running this? You know, you might decide to run it at a beta price and say, okay, actually, I'm going to run it at this price because it's not been run before. And I want to test it on my audience and I want to give them a bit of a reward for being loyal. Let's put it out at that instead of what I imagine the full price will be in the next round, for example. So that's the way that I would start with it. The second thing is, absolutely, you can have 2 tiers. I would be really clear about expectation management if you're going to do that. Personally, if you're running a beta round and it's going to be lower price anyway, I would just blanket tier it at the top tier. Have everyone do that, because you're going to get the best results, and that's going to lead to the best testimonials, and that's ultimately going to help people buy it more for the second round when it does go up in price. So it will benefit you and it will benefit them. They're going to get better results too. After you've done that first round, if you want to bring in a second tier where it's more self-study, you can just be really clear with people on sales calls or in your emails, your marketing, promotion, that if you take the self-study, this is what is not included. And this is how you will be responsible for motivating yourself to get through the entire 6, 8, 12 weeks.
Yep.
I'd also make it clear that you can upgrade if you want during the first 2 weeks of the program, and only 2 weeks, because that way you're catching people when they're like, oh, actually harder than I thought. And equally, you're increasing urgency. So they're not thinking, oh, that's cool, I can just upgrade in week 4 if I really need to. And by that time, they're too far behind to catch up. If they have to do it by week 2, you can get them back up to speed with a little bit of a kick to the backside. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything else? Any other crime? Like, go for it. We're here.
I know I probably have thousands, but I won't hit you with them right now. I think I've got enough work to do. I feel really good. Thank you so much. I feel like these are actionable next steps that I can take.
Good.
Really get this underway.
I'm really excited about this. Please let me know how it goes, because I'd be really, really interested.
I will. I'll go into Facebook and let you know. I'm excited. It's the first thing I've sort of developed that has been, absolutely requested straight up, literally answering the questions people ask. So we'll see how it goes.
And that's phenomenal, because you've done the market research. It will work. Like, that's the thing. And it will, Naomi's crossing her fingers here, but it's one of those things that actually, when you do your market research, you can't really fail. And that's why so many people have failed launches, is because they think they did their market research. They were like, oh yeah, well, I think my audience needs this. Or I saw a couple of people posting about this in a Facebook group. You've actually asked and they've told you. So the trick is now to create it quickly and get selling. And that's all you need to do. You're going to be great. So where can all of these wannabe creatives find you? Where's the place where they can hang out with you and get stuff done?
They can come say hi to me. I have a website. It's just naomilove.com.
Amazing.
And I'm on Instagram every day. That's where they can really sort of chat and catch me most of the time. And that's just at Naomi Bulger, which is Naomi and then Bulger.
Perfect. That's amazing. And those will all be in the show notes. So if you are somebody who is thinking, actually, I need to take more time to be creative. And I think it's something we're all guilty of on the entrepreneurial journey. We power so much time and energy into our businesses and we forget about anything else that we enjoy. So if that is you, you need to head over to Instagram, you need to head over to Naomi's website and make sure that you go and find out a little bit more. Otherwise you will literally become a hermit and just computer all day. We've been there, it's not pretty.
I have a cat.
Exactly. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit the subscribe button or hit the download button so you don't miss another one, and leave us a review and let us know how we did. I'll be back on Monday with another episode, and I'll see you then.